Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling green hills, there lived a young man named Leo. Leo was known by everyone in the village, not for his hard work or kindness, but for his constant complaints. No matter what happened, Leo always found someone or something to blame. If the crops failed, he blamed the weather. If he lost a game, he blamed the rules. If he was late, he blamed the roads. Leo never took responsibility for anything in his life. One day, an old philosopher named Seneca visited the village. Seneca was famous for his wisdom, and people traveled from far and wide to hear him speak. When Leo heard about Seneca's arrival, he decided to go and listen, hoping to find some new way to explain why his life was so difficult. That evening, under the shade of a great oak tree, Seneca spoke to the villagers. He talked about freedom, happiness, and the power of choice. But what caught Leo's attention was when Seneca said, "The moment you take responsibility for your life, everything changes. You stop being a victim and become the creator of your destiny." Leo frowned. This idea was strange to him. How could his problems be his own fault? After the talk, he approached Seneca and said, "Master, I don't understand. Bad things happen to me all the time, and none of it is my doing. How can I take responsibility for things outside my control?" Seneca smiled gently and said, "Come with me tomorrow morning. I will show you something important." The next day, Leo met Seneca at the edge of the village. The philosopher handed him a small, withered plant in a clay pot. "This is your life," Seneca said. "For years you have neglected it. You have blamed the sun for being too hot, the rain for not falling enough, the wind for being too harsh. You ever water this plant? Did you ever move it into the shade when the sun burned too strong? Did you ever care for it at all?" Leo looked down at the dying plant and felt a pang of guilt. He had never done anything to help it grow. Seneca continued, "You see, most of what happens to us is not about the world being unfair. It is about our own choices. If you neglect your health, you will get sick. If you neglect your work, you will fail. If you neglect your relationships, you will be lonely. Life responds to what you do, or what you don't do." Leo thought deeply about these words. For the first time he wondered, what if his unhappiness was not because of bad luck, but because of his own actions? That day, Leo made a decision. He would stop blaming others and start taking responsibility. He began small. When he woke up late, he admitted it was his fault for not going to bed earlier. When he forgot a task, he acknowledged he hadn't written it down. Slowly, something incredible happened. The more responsibility he took, the more control he felt over his life. One evening, a storm destroyed part of his roof. Before, Leo would have cursed the sky and waited for someone else to fix it. But now, he gathered tools and materials and began repairing it himself. A neighbor saw him working and offered to help. Together, they fixed the roof, and Leo realized that responsibility didn't mean doing everything alone. It meant owning the problem and taking the first step. As time passed, Leo's entire life transformed. He worked harder, cared more, and stopped making excuses. The villagers noticed the change. They began to respect him, and soon opportunities came his way. He was offered a better job. His relationships improved. Even his health got better because he took care of himself. One day, Seneca returned to the village. When he saw Leo, he barely recognized him. The young man who once carried the weight of complaints now stood tall with confidence. "You have changed," Seneca said. Leo nodded. "Because I finally understood what you meant. When I blamed others, I was powerless. But when I took responsibility, I became free. I realized that I am the one who shapes my life." Seneca smiled. "That is the greatest wisdom a man can learn." And so, Leo lived the rest of his days with this truth in his heart. He knew that responsibility was not a burden. It was the key to a life of meaning and power. The lesson of Leo's story is simple, but profound. Nothing changes until you do. The moment you stop blaming and start owning your choices, the world opens up to you. Problems become challenges, failures become lessons, and life becomes yours to shape. Responsibility is not about guilt, it's about freedom. It's the difference between being a leaf blown by the wind and being the one who steers the ship. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still blaming others? Where are you avoiding responsibility? Because the truth is, the moment you take charge, everything changes. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you become stronger. And that is why taking responsibility changes everything.